Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial, we are going to be learning how to draft a princess that bustier. If that's something you're interested in, come with me and let's get started. For this tutorial, I have my pattern paper folded into two because I intend to use it in a different tutorial. But what I've done so far is gone ahead to draft out my basic body pattern. Now, if you don't know how to do that, I'll be linking it down in the description and up on the screen here. But I'll still explain what I did. So basically, I went ahead to draw a line that represents my shoulder line, and I'm marking out my neckline, which is 3 by 3.5. You can do 3 by 4 depending on how low you want your neckline to be. And I'm going ahead to mark out my shoulder measurement. So basically, you measure what your shoulder is and then you divide that by 2. And whatever you have, you mark that on the paper there. To get my shoulder slope, I marked out 3/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to go ahead and roll a line across. And then from my shoulder slope, I'm going to go ahead and mark out what my armhole measurement is. So you also divide that by 2 and you get what you need. For this person here, hers is 10 because she is on the bigger side in terms of her bust. Okay, and then we'll put the lines together and then mark out our chest line. Now that we have our chest line marked out, we'll go ahead and divide our bust measurement by 4, and then we'll go ahead to mark it out. Now, depending on what your bust is, your round bust, or should I say the circumference of your bust, that's what you go ahead to mark out. And then we'll divide this line here by 2. So your armhole line divided by 2, and whatever you get, you go ahead to mark that out and then mark in 1/2 inch. Afterwards, you go ahead to use your French curve to put all the lines together. Now that we have those lines represented, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and represent the other lines by marking out your shoulder to bust, your shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline. Now, shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline and full length depends on the person's body. Again, some people's shoulder to bust could be 11, some it could be 12, 15, depending on how big this person's bust is. That's how it's going to be. Don't worry, you're not messing anything up. If the person is on a bigger bust size, then you're doing the right thing. If the person is on the smaller bust size, you are doing the right thing. Some people's shoulder to bust can start at 9, 10. So yeah, just do your measurements and make sure that they are correct. After doing all that on the pattern paper, I'm just going to go ahead to make a straight line across. Now that we have all those lines represented, the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and label it. So I have my chest line, bust line, under bust line, waistline, and full length line. Now, after the full length line, I went ahead to add at least 1 inch sewing allowance. Now that we have all that labeled out, the next thing we're going to do is mark out our under bust measurement divided by 8. For us to get the perfect dart, what we're going to do is mark out 4 3/4 on the bust line. Then on the under bust line, we'll mark out 3 3/4. Okay, so basically this is going to make it fall in line and fall in place. And then we'll take that same 3 3/4 and mark it on our waistline and full length line, and also the allowance line as well. And you'll see how this really is going to help shape the dart line for you. Okay, basically that right there is your 1/2 inch line. After putting the dots together with my straight roll and my hip curve, the next thing I'm going to do is come at the shoulder slope and mark out 4 inches, like mark down 4 inches. Okay, and then we're going to connect that point to the bust point using our straight rule, and you can see that we have already created half of the princess, that the middle part has been created already. So we're going to go to our under bust and mark out 2 inches. You could increase it if the person is on the bigger side, but this is actually really perfect for you. So we'll mark out 2 inches on the underbust line and on the allowance line and just create a straight line. Okay, and then we'll use our French curve to create a curve from our underbust to the bust line. If you do not get what I said, you could just shuffle back and you'll understand. So at this point where we have our 4 inches, we're going to go down by 2 inches. What we're doing here is creating another placement for our princess that to have its own opening. Okay, so we'll go down from the 4 inches by 2 inches and then connect that curve from that part to the bust line as well, because this new line that we have now is not meeting the one at the top, because there's a gap always when you go ahead to cut these darts, right? So what you're going to do is go up from the new line by 2 inches and then go ahead to connect that line, and you see that everything will just fall in place for you and it will give you like the most perfect shape ever. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And this is what it looks like now. Those lines at the top are meeting each other, right? So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is going to go ahead and draw out a new armhole line. The old one is not going to serve us anymore, so we're just going to draw an extension now from the 2 inches that we had marked at the top, and we'll just take it in. Okay, so that way you have the perfect curve at the top and the perfect armhole to go with it, after which we'll go ahead to shade the parts that we no longer need. The parts that are going to be need to cut out, we're going to shade those parts out, and then we're going to go ahead and mark in our main measurements. So at the top here, you remember that we already marked out our bust measurement, right? Divided by 4. Then we're going to add in our sewing allowance. I like to add in my sewing allowance on my pattern, because that way when I'm going ahead to transfer onto fabric, if even if it's just like 3/4 of an inch or half an inch that I need to add on my fabric, I know my sewing allowance is already there, so I don't have to worry about it or forget it in any instance. At the underbust, we're going to do our underbust measurement divided by 4. We're going to add the 2 inches that we have for the dart, and then we're going to go in with our sewing allowance of 1.5 inch. At the allowance line, I went ahead to mark out our top hip measurement, and then I added the 2 inches for the dart and 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. And I'm going to go ahead to put all this together using my French curve, or you could call it a curve rule, whichever one. That's what I use right now to put everything together. After we've gone ahead to put everything together, or just go ahead to cut, but I want to say that this is like the most simplest way to learn to draft this princess that Bustier pattern. Like, it's so simple and it's so easy, and I just love this very technique right here. Okay, after we do this, we're going to go ahead and also draft the back pattern for this. Y'all, if you got to this part of the tutorial, I'll really appreciate it if you go ahead to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment down below, ask questions if you need to. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. This is what the front pattern looks like, and I love how neat it is. Now let's go ahead to draft out the back pattern. For the back, the first thing I like to do is go ahead and mark out my zipper allowance. Now, it should be the first thing you would like to do as well, seeing as you actually need this before you go forward into doing any other thing, as long as you are adding a zipper to your outfit. The next thing I'm going to do is mark out my neckline. after my zipper allowance, not before my zipper allowance. Now we're going to be using that zipper allowance as a guide to basically mark out the other lines that we're going to need. So from the zipper allowance, I'm marking out my neckline, which is 3 inches by 1 inch. I can do two, or you can even make it a V neckline depending on what you want. I'm going to use my curved rule to make a curve on this neckline, and then use a straight rule to extend it into the zipper allowance line. After I do this, I'm going to go ahead and again from the zipper allowance line mark out my shoulder measurement, and then for my shoulder slope I also did 3/4 of an inch. From my shoulder slope point I went ahead to mark out my armhole line. I'm going to use my straight rule to put all the dots together, and at the bottom line here where I have my armhole line marked out, I'm going to also mark out my shoulder line, like how much my shoulder is, like 7, so it will make a very straight line. And then I'm going to go ahead to roll out my chest line just like we did in the front. I would also go ahead to mark out my shoulder to bust line, shoulder to waistline, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, shoulder to full length, and then shoulder to allowance line. After I've gone ahead to make all those dots known, I would then go ahead to put each and every one of them together. Now that we have all the lines represented, the next thing I'm going to do is mark out my bust measurement divided by 4 onto here, and then go ahead to use my curved rule, my French curve, to make a curve to signify our armhole curve. The next thing I'm going to do is go on to the bust line and mark out our under bust measurement divided by 8 onto the lines, like from the top to bottom, okay, and just make a straight line across. And then at the bottom part here where we have the allowance line, I'm going to go out on both sides by half an inch. Then I'll use my straight rule to make the dart known properly by connecting the bottom dart to the dart line at the top. At the outside line where we have our zipper allowance, I'm going to go in by half an inch, and then on the zipper line itself I'm also going to go in by half an inch. If you did not understand what I just said, please go back and you'll understand a little better. So what I'm doing here is basically getting rid of any zipper bulge that may appear on the outfit that we're making. So I'm just basically taking my straight rule and creating a straight line across. The next thing we're going to do is go on our allowance line and go up as well by half an inch. So you have half an inch from the zipper allowance line, and you have it from inside the zipper allowance line, and you have it from the bottom. Basically what this does is, it, like I said, it helps remove any zipper bulge whatsoever that might appear, okay. And I also went ahead to label this so we don't get like confused or stranded at some point. We already have our bust line, so we're going to mark now our under bust line from the half inch that we came in by, not from the zipper allowance that we initially created, the half inch that we came in by. That's where we'll start marking the other measurements from. So mark out our under bust measurement plus whatever that line says. For me here it says 3/4, and then I'll go ahead and add my sewing allowance of 1.5 inch. At the bottom part I'll also do this by dividing my upper waist by 4, and then going ahead to impute my dart allowance, which is 1 inch, and then a sewing allowance of 1.5 inch. This is very important, so I need you to pay close attention, okay. The next thing we're going to do is use our curved rule, French curve, to put all the dots together. Now for the neckline area, I changed my mind. I wanted it to have more of a V effect, so I went ahead to mark out 8 inches, okay. I marked out 8 inches, and then I'll go ahead to use my straight rule to connect it from the 3 inches width to the 8 inches length that I did. I actually went ahead to go a little deeper, and I did 9.5 after everything, and I was satisfied with that. Okay, now for the dart area, I don't like my dart to transfer onto my fabric, and that is the reason why we are creating a pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and make my dart disappear. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and fold the dart in as smoothly as I can, and then I'll go ahead to use my sellotape to hold it down so it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, and this has worked for me countless times. I like to do it. This is like my thing now. I just make my dart disappear, and you go on my outfit and you're looking for it, except if it's like the front part. When it comes to this kind of darts, you will not see them because I actually do make them disappear. After doing that, now we have our back pattern, right? I'm going to go ahead and remove the things that need to be removed by removing the 1/2 inch at the bottom that we did, the 1/2 inch outside the zipper allowance line, and then I'll go ahead and cut out the neck area and cut out the remaining things that need to be cut out. And that will be it for the drafting of the back pattern. These are all the patterns placed side by side. I love how this looks, very neat, and I love the process of making mine. So I hope you enjoyed the process of making yours as much as I have enjoyed the process of making mine, and I hope to see you on my next tutorial. Now with that being said, y'all, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified when I post a new video. Don't forget to love yourself because I love you. Have a beautiful day or night, whichever it is you live for. Bye.